A recent comment made by Travis Hunter in an interview with CBS Sports just made things a whole lot more interesting for the upcoming draft, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you why on today's show. But selfishly, I ask right off the top to make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Try to get to 44,000 before the draft kicks off. We are just over 500 away, but 10 more to 43.5. So make sure you scroll on down and click that sub button. But this is the quote that I think has gone somewhat viral from a CBS Sports interview between Travis Hunter. So he said, when asked about would you rather play wide receiver or corner, he said, it's never playing football again because I've been doing it my whole life and I love being on the football field. I feel like I could dominate on each side of the ball. So I really enjoy doing it. This has to factor in big time if you're the Cleveland Browns because if the plan all along is to just play him at wide receiver, you're going to have a very disgruntled employee that you use the number 2 overall pick on the moment he gets to training camp when you let him know, oh, you're not playing corner, dude. You're just playing wide receiver. That's not a very good first step, right? Honeymoon in the relationship if you completely disregard and ignore what he has to say. So I'm not convinced that the Browns are going to dramatically alter their draft plans. But if you're going to use the number 2 overall pick on a player and you plan on blindsiding him with we're not going to let you play both ways, well, you've already got an idea of what he might do in retaliation, which is not play football. Because those are two options that he is weighing, either playing both ways or not playing at all. And Andrew Berry at the NFL Combine let everyone know they view him as a wide receiver. So this has been the nucleus of what my growing fear has been with Travis Hunter really since like January. Can he play both ways? And I want to do a bigger deep dive on that during today's episode because there are some numbers we can look at to really come out with a scientific answer as to whether or not something like this can be done since we've never really seen it done, right? Deion Sanders would be the most notable example of someone playing 2 sports at one time, but he didn't even play all that much for the Braves when he was playing for the Falcons. So this is uncharted waters, but there are a few hurdles that we have to get past when it comes to answering the question of can Travis Hunter play both ways? Question number 1, physically, can it be done? Can he have the stamina to go out there and play offense and defense without much of a break? Deion Sanders put out a very interesting quote about how the college game is way faster than the NFL game. And True Media actually backs this up. Time in between snaps in the NFL, 35 and a half seconds. In college football, little under 32 and a half seconds. So from a physical standpoint, one could argue that it's more difficult in college because snaps and plays are back to back much more frequently, and you have less downtime in between to catch your breath. Now, the actual play itself is probably more physically demanding in the NFL than in college, but the recovery time is less. So that's one data point we can look at. The other data point is, are you playing more snaps in college than the NFL? Here are Travis Hunter's snaps per game in 2024 on offense and defense. So 59.6 offensively, 61.4 defensively. Very similar. I compare that to 2 players that played all 17 games for the Browns in a starting capacity. Jerry Jeudy offensively last year playing 62 snaps per game. Martin Emerson defensively playing 48 snaps per game. So if the Browns defense is just as good as it was in 2023 and they're getting off the field much earlier than this Colorado defense was, from a physical standpoint, it could be argued that this is going to be easier than it was for him in college. There's more downtime in between snaps, which 3 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, catching your breath and you extrapolate that over 60 minutes, it'll add up. And then from a snap perspective, the defense is even just as good as it was last year, which was a step back from 2023. He won't be on the field as much as he was in college when he still played both ways. So physically, I want to say yes. Not that I would have any idea, but If he was able to do it in college, you could make a good argument that it could be easier in the NFL. Now, what we cannot measure is the speed and violence difference between the NFL and college football. It could be way more physically demanding in the pros, and it probably will be. But could that cancel out with more rest time and fewer snaps on defense? Possibly. Time will tell. I've got 2 more questions I want to look at in today's episode, but really quickly, a quick shout out to our sponsor, GameTime. GameTime makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard to get playoff seats. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. So if you want to go see the Cavs when they get ready for whoever comes out of the play-in tournament, or you want to go see the Guardians or any other sporting event in your area, visit GameTime first because they're giving the Dog Pound $20 off their first purchase. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on to question number 2. Let's say we can put a check next to question number 1 that physically you could play both ways and not be completely burnt out and a liability on the field. Second question I have is mentally, can it be done? Now, there's no real data that I can pull up here to talk about what it's like mentally to prepare for a game offensively and defensively. I mean, Travis Hunter in college, looking at his stats, clearly did not have an issue with getting prepared for each game plan's offense and defense's game plan, each game's offense and defensive game plan. But the NFL is a whole other beast. I don't have the Browns playbook in front of me, but I'm going to go out there confidently and say it might be twice the size of Colorado's playbook. And that's not a slight against Colorado. That's just how college football playbooks work. Coaches know they can't overload these players. One, it's not a full-time job. For some, it will be one day, but for a majority of their starters, it will not be. So if they throw too much at them, they're just going to drown. They also know these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, not 26, 27, 30-year-old guys who've been doing it for a long time and prepare a whole lot better than guys who are partying in college and also balancing school. So mentally, I can't speak to whether or not it can be done, but I will say with confidence, it is much more challenging to pick up an NFL playbook, offense or defense, than a college one. So for a rookie to learn everything you need to know defensively is a lot. Then to ask him to do the entire offensive playbook as well, I want to lean towards no. But Hunter's a very bright young man that has defied the odds every single step of the way, high school, college, and now going to the NFL, playing both ways at an uncharted level before. So I don't want to say he can't do it, but I do want to say it's going to be way more difficult. And it might be too much on his plate for a rookie. The third question I want to unpack is practically, can it be done? Let's say he's got the stamina, he's got the smarts to know inside and out the offense and defensive playbook, but practically, can it be done? From a pure logistics standpoint, I can't really figure out how he would do practice. I know that sounds like Allen Iverson talk, but I mean, in NFL practice, you split up. Offense goes to work, defense goes to work. Then they come together, and the scout team goes up against the first team offense, and vice versa. How's he going to split his time? He can't be in two places at once, right? How does he meet with the corners when they watch film on the opposing wide receivers, and also he's meeting with the receivers watching film on the opposing corners? I just don't know if there's enough hours in the day for him to master both offense and defense's game plans each week and be in two places at once in practice. That's maybe the biggest question of all. The stamina can be answered, right? He could just be this unbelievable generational athlete we've never seen. Mentally, he can, go home each night and study his tail off offense and defense and come back the next day and go, I know every single offensive play and every single defensive play. But when practice rolls around and they go, receivers with me, corners over there, where does he go? And then when the game rolls around and he's in a situation where, hey, we worked on this in practice, he goes, well, you 10 did. I didn't because I was with the DBs. And so now I'm not really up to speed on this play. That's a huge logistical problem that Browns might run into, and I want them to think ahead. So I'll maintain the same kind of stance and theme I've had, which is if they have a good plan, I can get around this pick. But if the plan is he's a really good football player and we're going to figure it out, I don't want to call that a bad plan, but I want to call that a concerning plan. Because training camp in week 1 might slap him in the face when he's just not able, because of one of the 3 questions we outlined today, to fulfill offensive and defensive duties. And no one really had the foresight to think ahead and go, ooh, we probably could have anticipated that. I don't want it to be a surprise to Stefanski when, it's halftime and they're like, Travis, you're running the wrong route. What is going on? We worked on this in practice. He's like, I was with the DBs at that time. Oh, crap. There should be some forward thinking. So let me ask you, what position do you think Travis Hunter should play? I would think it's easier for him to play defense and play 10 to 15 snaps on offense. My fear is if he's playing offense and then you put him out there for a defensive play and he's a little winded, and the first play that the opposing offense sees Hunter out there, go, you're running a go route. We're going to test him right now because we just saw him go up and down the field offensively, and we think he might be a little bit gassed. So we're going to, push him right now, and we're just going to send you deep. And if that gives up a huge touchdown, it's going to be quick to point the finger and go, this was a bad plan to have him go both ways because it's just not practical in the NFL. Let's wrap up today's morning edition before we go live in a little bit with a card pick. Reed, which card do you want to go with? Three of clubs. Mike's not working. I'm going to say the ace of diamonds. 4 spades. 4 spades. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday until we are back for our live show at 5 p.m. Eastern.